When I look back on my life, I think I had some really interesting parts. I was the professor of ceramics and other fine arts. Then I became the administrator. When I was dean at Michigan, I learned a whole lot, and it was almost like a graduate degree for me. I was the director of Pilchuck for 10 years, and then I became me. I never had a hobby. And when I stopped working full-time, I said, hobby, I could do something. So I started scuba diving. I've been on every exotic reef in the world, and it is beautiful. I'm working on a series of boat shapes that reflect a view that you get when you finish scuba diving and you come up to the surface and you wait to get picked up by the boat that dropped you off. After I get the form finished, then I put surface color on it. I use this material, which is a combination of glaze and color. I have these printed transfers that I got a few years ago from China, and I figure out what the pattern will be. And I just press water through this tissue paper, and it will be the exact same color. It doesn't change color. The series is a series that I'm trying to grapple with. That's why I make more than one, because I'm searching for the perfect boat, and I haven't found it yet. My ideal would be to have water droplets all over the place. Sometimes people know that I have a long background in ceramics, and I know a lot. Some people have no idea, and both are fine with me. What kind of thrills me about ceramics is that I can be really mindful. I like to touch, I like to feel, I like to have working time to think, and clay slows me down. I've always worked on containers, cups, bowls, and baskets. I mean, I could live in the woods if I had a cup, if I had a bowl, and if I had a basket. I decided to make some pills. This is my pill basket instead of my pill box, and I made happy pills. So if you want to be very happy, you take a whole happy pill, or this one you can break in half. I like things that I can put in my house and that I can live with. I want to remember all of the complexity that my life has had. I love contributing to the philanthropy in Seattle. And a few years ago, I made a service for 16 for the Seattle Art Museum Party in the Park. And people loved them, and I loved making them. I want there to be a vibrant art community in Seattle. And I feel compelled to show my love, to be a docent at SAM, to be a supporter of a lot of other organizations, to be on the board of Artists Trust. I cannot help myself. When I'm working, I'm remembering diving. I'm remembering traveling to India. I'm remembering feelings. I'm really remembering happiness. And it thrills me when things work out beautifully.
Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nancy Guppy, and it is a real pleasure and honor to welcome all of us to this celebration, to this love fest for the remarkable Marge Levy. Now, Marge was a deeply cherished wife, friend, aunt, colleague, artist, advocate, mentor, administrator, philanthropist. The list of nouns goes on. But I want to ask a question. with a show of hands, is there anyone in this room who at some point was a little afraid of Marge? Yeah, right. So when I first met Marge, probably at some on the boards show, I picked up immediately that she did not suffer fools. And because I am a bona fide fool, I braced myself for Marge to squash me like a bug. And honestly, I wouldn't have blamed her. Sometimes I want to squash myself. But for whatever reason, Marge had mercy upon me, saw something in me that did not deserve to be squashed, and we became acquaintances and then friends. I always loved crossing paths with Marge, one, because she was actually, as you saw, quite funny and had her own strain of silly foolishness. But more than that, I loved crossing paths with Marge because she was present. She was attentive. She saw people. She received people. She received me. And when you encounter that sense of yourself, your full self, being seen and being accepted by another human being, you do not forget it. Marge had excellent diction, did not mince her words, and spoke her mind. That said, in my experience, Marge was fundamentally powered by an open-minded wonder and curiosity. She embodied that fabulous French phrase, joie de vivre. Who here speaks French? Yell it out, right, correctly. Joie de vivre, right, joy of life. And it played out in every aspect of her being. I am so grateful to have known Marge, both personally and professionally, and I just wish that I could have had more time with her. So this afternoon, we are going to hear from a few people who knew Marge very well, and we are going to start with the person at the top of that list, the man who shared everyday life with Marge, the ordinary and the extraordinary, her beloved husband, and her favorite Valentine, Larry Lancaster. Come on up, Larry. And while Larry's coming up, make sure, if you haven't already, take a real good look at all of this gorgeous ceramics that Marge made. It's pretty darn impressive. Larry Lancaster.
That was one of the longest walks I've ever made. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Nicole for pulling this all together. She made a lovely wreath. Nicole asked me to say a few intimate words, personal, about Marge. So I thought about it for a while, and I talked to her about a week or 10 days ago and asked her if it's all right to share. I think I heard her say, "Why the hell not?" I don't know if all of you know, but Marge and I met online at what they used to call Match.com. And everybody on Match.com wrote a profile of themselves. Most of the guys tried to act very romancy and talk about making long walks on the beach I started my profile with, I am a nudist. I wanted anybody who would be interested in even meeting me, let alone have a relationship, I wanted them to know who I was. So Marge replied to my profile, Seattle? Where? So Marge and I shared that intimacy, and I won't go into details, but suffice to say, we enjoyed life, and a lot of it nude. I'll give you just one little vignette. A lady friend of hers asked her one time, how can you do that? How can you let a bunch of strange men look at you naked? Her response was, I get to see them naked. So, thank you very much for coming. I know you all loved her. But not as much as me.
I love all those images, Larry. Fantastic. Well, family, the people who know us the longest from the very beginning, have stories that only they know and only they can tell. So please welcome Marge's sister, Linda Levy.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Linda, and I am Marjorie's baby sister. Before I get started with my prepared remarks, when I came up here after Marge had passed away, I got to have the honor to look through some of her papers. And God bless her, she had a little bit of my mother in her, in saving bits of things just in case. And so we came across a poem from somebody else's memorial service, and she had circled it and said, I like this, say this. So in your program, you have a poem, and I thought we could say it together because it's something to honor her. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the trace of a shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same that it ever was. There is absolute, unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind? Because I'm out of sight. I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner, all is well. Now, some of you got white roses as you walked in, and I just thought I'd say 1 or 2 sentences about that. In our family growing up, my father loved flowers, and he got my mother flowers all the time, every birthday, every anniversary. And when she turned 50, like always, there was always one white rose in a bunch of red roses. And it was like a birthday candle on a cake, one to grow on. And so as you look at your rose for however long it lasts, think of Marge, think of her family, think of all that she meant to you. Before I begin again, I would like to make a shout out to all of my family who's here in this room today, who came from around the country to support me and to honor Marge. And for that, I am forever grateful. Across the country, Marge has some lifelong friends, such as Joni, Joan, and Vicki, who are watching this from their prospective homes. They knew Marge from the time of 11 years old through college and beyond, and had very funny stories to share with me, but that's for another time. So today, I have invited Marge to join in the celebration of her remarkable life. As she has shared many videos about herself you saw, I won't go over those details. To many of you, Marge was an influential figure, as we have also heard. To me, she was Marjorie, a family member and a constant presence throughout my life. Marge was my oldest sister, just over 6 years older than me. She was my protector, always in the background, guiding and supporting me in whatever I did. She was the eldest of 3 girls. We grew up outside of New York City, often taking trips into the city for sightseeing and family parties. Our mother was diligent, as you've seen, in documenting our lives with formal pictures, preserving the memories of our childhood. Marge's artistic abilities, as I remember, started at my 8th-year-old birthday party, where she had the guests request an animal, and then she drew the animal on a piece of paper. I had totally forgotten it, but my friends remembered it when I told them of her passing. Growing up, our family always had dinner together at a fancy table, white tablecloth, napkin rings, and Marge, she started at an early age, was a storyteller. And sometimes they'd be very funny, and my reaction as her baby sister was to punch her in the arm. Anyway, she didn't like that, but that's one of the first lessons she taught me, that was not a good thing to do. I looked up to Marge as an example of hard work, intelligence, and perseverance. She attended college and graduate school and held positions at various universities. We shared memorable sister moments, such as a road trip to Montreal for our other sister, Betsy's wedding shower. Marge had packed whole watermelon in a cooler for us to share going from New York to Montreal. And when she wanted some, I gave it to her. And she said, wow, this is kind of cool. This watermelon has no seeds. And I said, oh, that's because I took them out with my tongue. And I thought she was going to drive off the side of the road. As I advanced in my career as a nurse administrator, Marge was often the person I turned to for words of wisdom. And one of the ones that had a great impact on me was to let people who work with you take on more responsibility. It shows that you trust them, honor them, and it allows you to do more of what you want to do. Marge became a bonus mom to Sarah, visiting her in San Diego, and maintaining that relationship with Sarah over 50 years. She also visited our family in San Diego with her first 2 dogs, Rosa and Tassie, one of which, I forget which, she actually brought home from Italy. From an early age, I witnessed Marge's bravery at the way she addressed her GI issues, which were lifelong. They started at a very early age. And she told me about one trip when she went to Japan and needed to use a restroom on the street. They had public compartments. And once she got in there and did her thing, she couldn't figure out how to get out. And so there was a pull cord, which she pulled, only to discover that when she finally got out, there were all these rescue people there, and she just ran like heck to get away from them. In her mid-30s, Marjorie became an aunt. Both my sister Betsy, who's here with us today, and I had 2 children each. My children are Michelle and Andrea, and Betsy's children are Debbie and David. As an aunt, Marge made trips to our homes to see her nieces and nephew grow up. In fact, she was deeply involved in David's life as a teenager, and she had him up to Pilchuck and really started him out on his career in jewelry making. And one of his memories was that Marge, there was a party at Pilchuck, and Marge got him to dress up as a girl. And David's memory remembered that she dressed like a man, except the picture you're seeing at some point, she was like maybe a male lobster or something. She did not look like a man. So, as Larry already shared, they met on Match.com. Well, the backstory to that from Debbie is that Marge was visiting Debbie in New York and found this funny thing on her computer called JDate, which is a matching system for Jewish men and women. And so Debbie went to work. Marge was very interested in this and went on Debbie's site and matched with all these people, but that were Marge's age, not Debbie's age. And so one of the replies was, well, I think, I'd be happy to meet you, but I seem to be a lot older than you said you were in your profile. Anyway, Marge went home to Seattle, having never known about computer dating, and went on Match.com, and that's how she met the love of her life, Larry. That was the most wonderful adventure of her life. Meeting Larry, they were peas in a pod, yin and yang, and being with Larry brought out a side of Marjorie that I had not seen in my 54 years of knowing her, and that was how loving and kind and caring she could be. She discovered new passions such as running, swimming, biking, and participating in her first, and I think her last, triathlon. And she also, that's when she developed her interest in underwater photography and scuba diving. In her mid-60s, Marge became an aunt and an aunt-in-law, continuing to visit family in San Diego in the Bay Area. She took a keen interest in her grandnieces and grandnephews, watching videos of their numerous activities, making gingerbread houses with Marge's artistic flair, teaching photography to Lila, one of her grandnieces, and as a result, I never have enough storage in my phone. Going to the beach and even supplying diapers for twins Noah and Duke for 2 years. That's a lot of diapers. She remained close to Debbie, Paul, and Ethan, and cherished meeting her most recent grandniece, Atlas. Last August, Marge visited the Bay Area and was able to see Debbie and Betsy in person. She sent her recorded messages professing her love and care for each of us. And it's really wonderful to have those to listen to when we need to hear Marge. During COVID, Marge and I didn't see each other for almost 3 years, but stayed connected through Zoom. Afterward, we took a memorable trip to New York where we had lots of fun, we're silly, we ate good food, and we even walked into a Victoria's Secret perfume launch on the High Line in New York. Who knew? And we ended up with some great peonies. Despite facing health issues in the past, Marjorie always tried to stay upbeat. I could tell how she was feeling because of her phone calls. If she didn't feel so well, she called me a lot. If she felt fine, who had a sister? I never heard from her. When I offered to come up to Seattle during this past year to help take care of her, she said, nope, I have Larry. This past May, Marge finally felt well enough for a visit, and we shared wonderful moments, eating favorite foods, visiting Clay Corner, a place that brought her much joy, and laughing together. The laughter and love are what I remember most. I have read this 20 times and it never fails. Above all, Marjorie was my big sister. I was her baby sister who loved her dearly and will miss her terribly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. And I do want to point out that Marge had a great sense of style, and clearly you do as well. Have you noticed the boots? When she gets out, we'll have her do a little sachet in front of us here. We got to see him out here. Let's see the whole out. Yeah, come on up. Yes, let's get back up here. And can you imagine having Marge Levy as your aunt? Man, jackpot. Marge's life in the arts was not only personal, it was institutional, visionary, and deeply influential. As executive director of Pilchuck Glass School, she helped guide one of the world's most important centers for glass art through a pivotal chapter in its history. So here to reflect on Marge's legacy is Pilchuck's current executive director, Donna Davies. Come on up, Donna.
Good afternoon. It's a thrill to tell you a bit about Marge's time at Pilchuck. Marge took the job of executive director at Pilchuck Glass School and arrived in the spring of 1991. She had heard of Pilchuck before in 1971, the year our school was founded. Marge had been teaching at Purdue University, and she actually saw the original poster for our first summer session in 1971, and she thought, that sounds like fun. Marge had been at Purdue for 15 years, where she began as an instructor, and when she left, she was a full professor and chairman of the department. She then went on to the University of Michigan, where she was dean of the art school, and after 5 years at Michigan, where she had a very big job and with a lot of very big challenges, Marge was excited about the prospect of a sabbatical. A year where she would be paid to catch her breath. But Marge was a deeply curious, creative person. She was looking forward to spending her sabbatical pursuing her academic pursuits and research for her own creative projects. But at that time, when you were one of the few women working in higher education administration, headhunters knew who you were. And Marge was in demand. She was a natural leader. She knew how to get things done. As she once said when looking back on her career, she said, "I would join something or be appointed to it, and within 10 minutes, I was the chair." When Marge was approached by headhunters numerous times about the executive director job at Pilchuck, she had just stepped down as dean at Michigan, and her plan was to go to Bali to design silver jewelry. But the headhunters were tenacious. They kept calling. The search committee kept calling. Marge had come out to Seattle. She had spent time on campus, but she turned the job down multiple times. The headhunter and search committee continued to pursue her, and Marge finally asked for a week to think it over. And after a week, no one called. Well, after not hearing from anyone for a few days after that week, she thought that job would be fun. She finally called the headhunter back, who said, "Thank God. The search committee said I couldn't call you anymore to beg." When Marge arrived at Pilchuck in 1991, a computer system had just been put in. She did not have an artistic director. She did not have a director of development. She was overseeing bookkeeping and the admissions process. She was working 16-hour days. And as they say, her hair was on fire. Now, remember that, because we're going to circle back to that in a bit. Marge loved challenges. She loved people. She loved people who made objects. And she found the quality in all those pursuits fascinating. She quickly hired an artistic director, and Pike Powers arrived in 1992. She hired a director of development to help lead Pilchuck's fundraising and campaign for our 25th anniversary. She oversaw the publishing of a book commemorating our history and 25th anniversary, all while having lunch with students and instructors, giving them tours on campus, having late-night conversations in the studios about their work, meeting with donors and the board, and a multitude of so many other things in between, as all executive directors know. As I was writing this and reflecting on Marge, I of course thought of what she must have been thinking and doing each day in this role that we share. And I thought of my own memories of meeting Marge and talking with her. And then I thought, I wonder what some of her immediate successors in this role remember of their chats with Marge. So I reached out to some of them, and I'll share some of our memories with you. Beginning with my own, I met Marge in 1997. I was an art history graduate student, writing my master's thesis on contemporary indigenous glass. I was in Seattle for a few weeks, conducting research and visiting studios, and I had purchased the book about Pilchuck's 25th anniversary the year before, and I had highlighted, flagged, memorized details, and taken copious notes. And when Preston Singletary said, "You gotta get to Pilchuck," I said, "Okay." So I called, and I called, and I called. And each time I called, a staff member would say, "We've passed your message on to the executive director." Now, if you've seen campus, you've seen signs that we're not open to the public. You have to make an appointment. Well, my time in Seattle was nearing an end, and I was getting very nervous because I was a poor graduate student and I couldn't afford to extend my trip. But I was going to get a call, but was I going to get a call from Pilchuck? I was so close. So I called again, and this time When they picked up the phone, I didn't hear anything. I initially thought, oh no, I've called too many times. I think they hung up on me. But suddenly, I realized they had transferred the call. And then, a formidable voice came through who said, I know who you are, and I know why you're here. And we'll get you here. It was Marge. I immediately started to say, great, how do I? And then, click. I have absolutely no recollection of what happened next, except that I drove to campus, and Marge spent an extraordinary amount of time letting me interview her, and spent a day with me on campus. I'll always remember her strength as a leader and her warmth as an educator, encouraging me to continue with my innumerable questions. All former executive directors at Pilchuck will tell you that Marge was clear. The executive director's cabin on campus was her cabin. She had insisted that the bathroom, and specifically a bathtub, be part of that cabin. And she wanted the EDs who came after her to know and appreciate that. And we do. Patricia Watkinson remembered that she had always been grateful for Marge insisting on the bathtub. But there was one night that she was particularly grateful. One night, a couple of bats kept sweeping across Patricia's face while she's sleeping in bed. So she went into the bathroom and shut the door to close herself off from the bats. She slept in the tub. Thanks, Marge. Jim Baker recalled meeting Marge when he took the job, and Marge said, "You'll have lots of fun." And Jim said she was exactly right. He recalled that Marge liked to regularly visit campus and the director's cabin, and each time she would remind him that he was staying in her cabin. As Jim said, she had the right to claim ownership. She got that bathroom built. Now, remember when I told you we would circle back to Marge's hair being on fire? The woman was wearing multiple hats, doing all the things. Well, there's a story that's been shared from a session on campus during Marge's tenure. It was the end of a 2-week session, and everyone on campus was preparing for the student auction. Everyone's getting their costumes together, the runway is being set up in the lodge, the typical goings-on are happening preparing for the student auction. And apparently, a talented glassblower on campus decided the auction needed a little something. So he thought we needed fire blowing from the stage, and ended up setting Marge's hair on fire. Little did we know that Marge's hair was literally on fire at Pilchuck. Marge was a force. She was a passionate leader, a stalwart advocate for artists. She left an incredible legacy of leadership at Pilchuck, and she cared deeply about so many people, causes, and organizations. We miss you, Marge, and we'll see you on the Hill.
Pilchuck is lucky to have you, Donna. Even after decades of leadership, Marge remained staunchly committed to the studio, to clay, to learning, to being amongst other artists. So, here to speak about Marge as both a maker and as important as a joiner, as a member, is Executive Director for Community Ceramics, Amanda Salov. Come on up, Amanda.
Good afternoon. Thank you for gathering to remember Marge. I knew Marge as a colleague, a leader in our field, and also as a friend. I was lucky to be on the receiving end of her steadiness, her encouragement, and the unmistakable way she had of making you feel capable of more than you thought possible. Standing here today is both an honor and a responsibility, because like so many of you, I carry her influence with me. Before I speak about what she accomplished, I want to begin with how she moved through the world. Marge moved with generosity, with attention, with a deep belief that creative community was not an abstraction, but a daily practice. She understood that art does not happen alone. It happens in relationship. Her legacy was shaped as much by people as by material, and clay was her lifelong companion. So today I want to follow that thread. Clay was not simply something Marge worked with. It was something she listened to. Clay remembers the hand. It holds time. It records motion. She worked primarily in red clay, vessels and sculptural forms that felt ancient and immediate. Their surfaces revealed process. You could see the touch. Her work did not chase perfection. It asked for presence. Today, that presence extends even further. Larry asked that we share something extraordinary. The cups being shared up in the front when you entered today contain a small portion of Marge's ashes, a Marge gesture, clay shaped by the hand, clay that holds, clay meant for daily use, now holding her. If you choose to take one home, know that it carries not only her remains, but her belief that art lives in ritual, in the cup you reach for each morning, in the shared table. She continues quite literally in clay. That same presence shaped how she taught and mentored. Her influence was steady, but never rigid. She encouraged risk, experimentation, trust in the unknown. Her impact was less instruction, but more permission. Permission to trust process, permission to stay curious, permission to belong. Beneath all of that was something simple. She saw potential. Sometimes she said it directly, sometimes she didn't need to, but you felt it, that steady belief. Many she mentored, now artists, teachers, leaders, carry that forward daily. That is the kind of teaching that lasts. Wherever she served, in classrooms, studios, organizations, she approached leadership as care. She listened, she studied the room, she advocated when it mattered. Someone recently said to me, "If you trust that I can do it, then so do I." That is what it felt like to have Marge in your corner. Seattle became home in her later years, and she remained deeply engaged in museums, studios, and conversation. She believed in gathering. The wreath displayed here on the stage, many of you remember her building it piece by piece for a fundraiser for the Seattle Art Museum. Choral forms emerged from clay, color, texture, movement. We wanted it here not as decoration, but as evidence of her hands, her imagination, her joy in making something vibrant come together. She showed up again and again for the art community. As the first female president of NCECA, the National Council on Education for the Ceramic Arts, she opened doors for women in the field. Through Sola, which she co-founded, she championed older women artists. She refused the idea that aging meant narrowing. For her, it meant expansion, more voice, more depth, more room at the table. When we remember Marge, we remember how she made us feel, seen, welcomed, and valued. Just days before she passed, she sent me a simple text. Talk about potential. Even then, she was doing what she had always done, looking at the world, looking at us, and seeing what could come. We carry her forward, not only in our studios or in the clay, but in the way we show up for one another. If we can look at each other and see possibility, if we can say and mean it, talk about potential, then she is still with us. Thank you.
So eloquent, Amanda. Thank you. Well, an undisputed fact about Marge Levy, and Amanda mentioned it, is that she indeed showed up for art, artists, and for institutions that she loved. Case in point, the Seattle Art Museum, where Marge was a longtime docent, generously sharing art with thousands of visitors. So here to speak on this dynamic aspect of Marge's life is her dear friend and fellow SAM docent, Charles K. Sedlick.
Well, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record because Marge was probably, I do have a loud voice, the most artful person many of us knew. And I'm looking at my last card instead of my first card. Marge, oh God, I got him out of order. I know, this is not easy, as you all know, especially you all know. Thank you for asking me to be part of this. Marge was artful in everything she did, and she engaged so many of us and in so many aspects of the Seattle Art Museum. I gotta get my little clicker. Marge was a SAM ambassador with Larry in the beginning, and she was a docent, but Marge was also the relief pitcher at SAM because she could step in for anybody, anytime. And I know there are curators here who asked her to sub for them when a special group was coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so where are we going here? Okay. This is, okay, Nancy started this. Raise your hands if you've ever been in this building. Oh, thank you. I don't think enough people know about the vivarium, but this is where Larry and Marge started at the Seattle Art Museum as SAM ambassadors, and they were there every weekend. And that's how a lot of us as docents and as volunteers at the Seattle Art Museum met Marge. This is in my way, can I? Thank you. Okay, it won't go down, I'll move. So why do I get to share stories about Marge? That wonderful lady over there, Nicole, had a vision in a dream about 3 weeks ago. And I think there was some greenery involved. And Marge said to her, call Charles K. Marge and I met in the vivarium 20 years ago in 2007, and that's what it looked like in 2007. It was bare, not really bare. It came with seeds, it came with animals, it came with bugs, and it came with a few ferns, but it looked bare, almost bare. It's called, and many of you know this if you've lived in the Northwest, it's called a nurse log. Speaking of her sister, who was a nurse, I was also a nurse. So we have a little bit in common. It's a nurse log because it nurtures and supports living objects that grow and grow. This is what it looks like today, 20 years later. This isn't even as busy as it was because Bobby pruned it up because of the World Cup that's coming. But look what's growing. There's another Western hemlock coming out. This is a 5th 150-foot western hemlock that was 150 years old. It fell in the Cedar watershed, and they brought it to the art museum. It's nurturing, it's growing, it gets prolific. And doesn't that remind you of Marge, who nurtured so many of us in so many ways, and she mentored so many of you in so many ways. Think of her with her students at Purdue and Michigan. Think of her students and faculty at Pilchuck and Sola. Oh my God, she and Jenny formed this amazing support old artists, lady artists. I mean, what a big deal that is for old lady artists, and many of us. While at Pilchuck, Marge encouraged women to come. There were a few, as I found out, thank you, but there weren't enough. So Marge supported and got women and nurtured women to come and blow glass. One of those was Joyce C. Scott. So when she had an exhibit a year ago at the Art Museum, Marge donated the necklace that Joyce C. Scott had made for her to the Art Museum. Yet another indication of how Marge nurtured people and supported people and made people do things they never thought they could do. Where am I? Okay. This is Marge in the vivarium telling Mark Dion how things are. Mark Dion is the creator of the vivarium. He designed the plinth. He said we need this kind of log. He put the green things over the ceiling, but he's the creator, and there's Marge. And this, look at the fern behind him. That's how prolific this log got. Imagine her engaging with him. So after a couple years, Marge became a Seattle docent. I know there are some of you in the audience. I would like you to stand up, but don't stand up. Just raise your hand if there, and Linda well, there's a lot of people here that knew and loved Marge from the Seattle Art Museum. Yeah, okay, moving on. Marge and I, in 2015, and a group of docents went to India. There's a whole story about who snored the loudest, but I'm not going to go there. But here's Marge and the group that went to India in 2015 with our arrival marigolds around our neck. Now look at Marge. Look at that smile. You all remember that smile. And she's, again, engaging. I don't know if she's nurturing the guard, but she's engaging with the guard. The one on your left is the Craft Museum. Now, how did Marge get in the artist chair, is what I want to know. I mean, she could go anywhere and engage anybody and do anything. The other photo is in a textile museum, and that's a man stenciling on the fabric. You know her love for the Zuri, Z-U-R-I dresses. No, this is not Marge's. 3 people asked me that today. I have my own, but I only have these because Marge told me about Zuri. So, that's Marge. In Jaipur, Marge saw a plain package of textile. That's all it was. Well, Reka, who took us there, knew of a tailor, and overnight, Marge had that outfit. I mean, everything, the scarf, the top, the pants, the whole Megillah, she had it. The photo on the left is Marge at the Amber Palace. So this was a very special trip for us. We had a lot of fun. And the next 2 photos are 2 of my favorite. And we did this. It was scary as hell. We rode up a hill, and we thought we were going to fall out, but we had a very good time riding up that hill. The next one is also very special and a little irreverent, and it is not photoshopped. That's Diana's bench, and we put our feet up on it. We had an awfully good time. I'm almost done. Marge had an impact on so many of us. She gave so much of herself to so many of us and nurtured us in so many ways. I will bet that every one of you here have a piece of Marge in your home. She gave away, she sold, she had her boats, she had her jewelry. I have her little dice in my collection. They're just little things that remind you of Marge every day. But this is my martini glass. Marge had us over to the pottery shop. We got to make containers, as you heard being talked about. We got to make them, we got to paint them, she glazed them, she fired them, and she brought us all to win. So I do think of Marge every day at 4:30. Well, 4. Well, hey, I live with 150 old people, so we drink early. At 4:15, I start to make my martini, and I say, thank you, Marge, because it's every day, in every way. I have so many memories. Marge, as we say in our tradition, may your memory be for a blessing. You are remembered and you are loved.
Day drinking. Hey, it's a lot of fun. And I also just want to mention that nurse logs, I think we can all aspire, like Marge and Larry as well, to be nurse logs to the people in our own lives. That's a really beautiful image. Well, Marge had a practice in her support of artists. She was a very supportive of artists. As co-founder of Sola, she helped create and build a tangible structural model rooted in dignity, recognition, and community care for mature women artists. So here to reflect on Marge's tireless effort to turn an idea into a real and robust realities is her colleague, friend, and partner in crime, Executive Director of Sola, Nicole Dement.
Thank you all for being here. She would love this. It would be much longer, I'm sure, because she would have too many stories to share with us. And as I've been planning this and talking with so many friends and family, all I keep hearing, and we've heard it, Marge was a force, and she was. She was a lot. But Marjorie Levy was a Jewish girl born in 1943 in New York, a world at war, in a culture that didn't quite know what to do with outspoken, intellectually curious, independent women, which of course is exactly what Marge became. She came of age in a time when people were questioning everything: how we learn, how we live, how we treat each other, what it means to be creative, what it means to be free as a woman. And she carried that questioning spirit with her for the rest of her life. She was generous in all the best ways. It was an active generosity. She was very intentional with her generosity. And she knew what she wanted, and her generosity showed up again and again without fanfare, and she never wanted any credit. She did what she wanted, absolutely. And sometimes apologized later, sometimes. She was smart, she was decisive, she was fun. We would leave Sola meetings and she'd look at me and say, "This is so much fun." And I'm doing all the work, but that's fine, that's fine. It was fun, it was. She was deeply authentic. She was so generous in the fullest sense of the word. And Marge didn't just give money. She gave permission to act, to build, to try, and to do it now. Because she was the force that made it happen. She was part of a generation of strong, questioning women friends, artists like Coel Hooven, good friend, who insisted on making their lives and their work matter. And then there's the long friendship with Jenny Ruffner. Sola exists because of that friendship. They looked at each other and said, we can do better than this. We can make something that actually supports women like us. Sola meetings were always lively. They would reminisce about good times and hard ones. And they had some great stories about yard sale finds. And Marge had a story about every single artifact and artwork in Jenny's house and in her career. And even more stories about Jenny's exes. Let's just say there was a lot of tea spilled in some of those Sola meetings. But at the heart of it, there was so much love and mutual respect. That is what they gave to each other. That is what they developed in Sola. They knew firsthand the challenges that women faced. And they believed deeply that those artists deserved to be recognized while they were alive, while they could experience it and be celebrated and celebrate along with us. They believed in the possibility that women could be celebrated for their accomplishments instead of becoming invisible with age. Sola exists because two women refused to disappear quietly. Instead, they built something that made other women artists more visible, because if the world wasn't going to hand women the spotlight, then Marge and Jenny were more than happy to build the damn stage for it. And they both knew how to throw a great party. Let's talk about fundraising for a second. When she asked someone for support, she was very clear. She knew why she was asking, for what and from whom, and no fluff, no guilt, just truth, and there was usually a very specific number involved. I was constantly amazed at her ability to match the right event or moment with the right person. And then I realized she did that because she was a friend. She listened and she showed up. She lunched, she laughed, shared her encyclopedic art knowledge at SAM, made work in clay communities sitting next to you, went on diving trips, and then she and Larry delivered food for Jewish Family Services every other week. Nothing slowed that woman down. Two months before she passed, she was still walking the art fair with friends. I got a beautiful picture of her and Carol at the art fair recently. She was going to exhibitions. She was at the Traver Gallery openings, still showing up for artists. And she made those beautiful bowls that honored Jenny and brought us all together for her memorial in June. Always so deeply engaged and always a friend. So Marge and Jenny brought me on as someone to help keep Sola moving forward as they aged, but honestly, I couldn't keep up with either of them. And we worked well together because we cared about the same things, and it was a real gift to benefit from their experience. There was a lot of trust. It was a great leadership team. Honestly, it felt a little like having two very opinionated, very brilliant work wives. And I keep noticing how much of Marge is still present in the work we do at Sola, especially as we approach the 10th anniversary. Sola is direct, it's generous, and we don't just talk about supporting artists, we actually do it. And I want to end with a message to my dear friend. You are not the boss of me anymore, so you can stop sending me directions through my dreams. Thank you, Cheryl Kay. But I am endlessly grateful to you, Marge, for your trust, your friendship, and for your continual inspiration and how to be a real badass.
Yeah, badass, in the best possible meaning of that word, that phrase. Well, generosity has come up a lot, and speaking just with Nicole was talking about that. And that's perhaps, in my mind, the best quality one can encounter in another person. Marge, generous to her core, believed that the practice of generosity was something you did alongside others, not above them. Two people who shared Marge's philosophy are her lovely and equally generous friends, Michael and Leslie Ray Bernstein.
I can just stand here. Thank you all for being here today and for holding Marge with so much love. Marge Levy was born in Freeport, Long Island, and so was Michael. They grew up around the corner from each other without knowing that life had planted a seed that would wait more than 50 years to bloom. It wasn't until 2010, when Michael moved to Seattle and his 50th high school reunion was approaching, that a mutual friend reached out and said, "You know, Marge Levy lives here too." And just like that, after half a century and 3,000 miles, a circle quietly closed.
Following up on what Larry said, Marge did not go to that 50th high school reunion, but we all sent pictures so people would remember who we were. Marge sent pictures of she at a nudist camp. What followed was not a casual connection. It was a deepening friendship that unfolded over the next 15 years. Marge welcomed us into her life with the same curiosity, warmth, and attentiveness that she brought to everything she cared about. We traveled together, Larry and her, to Mexico. We celebrated birthdays and holidays. We shared meals, conversations, laughters, long stretches of time just enjoying each other's presence. Art was a common language for us. Marge as a visionary leader, artist, and superstar, and me as a lifelong collector. But that mattered very little because it was not the art itself. It was how Marge experienced life with intention, delight, and generosity.
Marge had an extraordinary professional life, and many people here have spoken about that today. What we were asked to speak about is Marge as a friend. And what stands out most to us is that Marge treated friendship as something sacred. She showed up, she stayed. She expressed gratitude often and out loud. She did not rush past connection or ever take it for granted. She let the friendship deepen over time and as everything tended to it carefully. Being chosen by Marge as a friend was not casual to us. It was meaningful, and she let us know that.
Though none of us were raised with a particularly observant Jewish life, Marge lived some of Judaism's deepest values without naming them as such. She lived with presence, she lived with gratitude, she lived with commitment to relationship. When Marge's sister Linda asked us to consider saying the mourner's Kaddish today, we felt deeply honored. Because Kaddish is not a prayer about death, it's a prayer about life. It's about what endures. It's about carrying love forward.
At one of the most difficult moments of our lives, Michael offered a Kaddish meditation that included a poem written by Merritt Mallow. We will reference it today
because it expresses something Marge lived so well. The poem reads, "Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away." And that is what Marge did again and again. She gave love away through friendship, through art, through attention, and through joy. And she trusted that love would keep moving long after her.
If there is a way to honor Marge today, it is not only to remember her, but to live as she did. Call a friend that you've been meaning to call. Say thank you out loud. Invite beauty in. Treat friendship not as something incidental, but as something essential.
Marge lives on in the people she loved and in the way that she taught us to love one another. May her memory be for a blessing, and may we carry her forward together.
Wow. Thank you so much. Well, beautiful afternoon of stories about the remarkable Marge Levy. And it was referenced earlier, if Marge was here, she'd probably have, well, first of all, a few corrections, I'm sure. and would probably regale us with a few more hilarious, fun, meaningful stories and anecdotes about her rich and clearly abundant life. To quote Ram Dass, "We are all just walking each other home." Marge Levy knew the truth of this. She knew that a life well lived is a life in relationship. And in her final message to the world, and I'm not sure if it was emailed to you, Nicole, Marge said, this is what she said, this is what to do next: celebrate and laugh. So let's keep that going together. We are going to go downstairs for dessert, coffee, and some camaraderie, storytelling. Like was mentioned earlier, before you leave the building today, do grab a ceramic mug made by Marge's friends at Clay Corner that have her ashes in it. That's amazingly cool. And take a long stem white rose to carry home as a small remembrance of Marge. And as corny as this might be, I would suggest that we all end with a 3 rousing cheers in honor of Marge Levy. So if you, are you guys into that? Okay. You want to stand up? You want to stay seated? Whatever you want to do. All right. So, hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! God bless Marge Levy! Thank you, everyone.